Planet Earth is a library. We are at the very edge of the galaxy. If you go into a well and you look at the daytime stars, there are very few, if any. We're looking into the center of the galaxy. We're at the very edge of the galaxy. We're at the very end of the Palladian arm of the five-armed galaxy. They thought for a long time the galaxy had 4 arms, but it actually has 5 arms, which makes sense. We have 5 senses, and there's the 5 elements, and 5 dominates everything in this reality. The history of the Earth appears to be somewhat convoluted and mysterious simply because we're not looking long enough. We look at a very small history. What we consider history is at best 2,000 years old, maybe 6,000 years old. But after 2,000 years ago, it starts becoming very muddied up. Frankly, the last 6,000 years have been dull compared to the history of mankind, humankind. The Earth, again, is a library. It's a repository or a depository for DNA from all around the galaxy, or maybe not the entire galaxy, but this arm of the galaxy, particularly from the Pleiades, Arcturus, and Sirius. These 3 star systems predominantly play in this game of mankind, of humankind. And our planet, the galaxy's moving around and around. And as it spins and moves and expands out through space, our planet spins around and around the galaxy as well. This rotation around the galaxy is enormous. It's 29,000 years. 29,000 years that it takes for us to go around the galaxy. There's 2 spots around the galaxy that are very important, and we're in that place right now. It's called the photon belt. We're directly in alignment with the Pleiades and Alcyone, which is the main transfer station from the center of the galaxy to us. You see, stars are very much like neurons. Our body is an image of the galaxy. And stars, like I said, they're like neurons. They transmit energy from the center of the galaxy to the rest of the galaxy. The energy comes to these stars, it's stepped down to a frequency that we can use. The cosmic rays that are coming to us at all times, they're invisible, and they affect us, but they're almost incoherent because we're not vibrating there yet. But right now, we're moving into this big photon belt, and it takes literally 1,000 years, or probably 2,000 years for us to move through it. We started moving through it 800 years ago. What happened 800 years ago, 1,000 years ago? The invention of the printing press, the beginning of imperialism, the start of human beings to look outside of the borders of the little village they're living in. Our minds are expanding. Our minds are expanding not from exploration so much as the influence of these cosmic rays that are coming from the center of the galaxy through Alcyone and the Pleiades into, or it's available to us now as we pass by this photon belt. 18,000 years ago, we were on the other side of the galaxy, and we passed through the other part of this projection that goes on either side of the galaxy. And it's very different. It was a disaster. That's when Atlantis sunk, and all these things happened that frankly put mankind back a step or 2 or 3. We're just now coming out of this stupor that happened from the tremendous amount of cataclysm that happened with Atlantis sinking and all those higher civilizations that were under the influence of the Palladians and the Arcturians and the old Lemurian races that were still around on the planet. I know this sounds very far out. It really isn't. What's far out is that we think that history started 2,000 years ago. Now that's really far out. What's far out is that we believe that being violent and not being cooperative is somehow evolving, when it's not. We're here to work together. Human beings are a grand experiment, an experiment on a grand scale in the third dimension. Who we actually are we don't really fit in here, and this is the reason why we're violent, because we're cut off from our full spectrum of realization. There's 12 strands of DNA, we're only firing 2 of them. So all this other information that's available to us is not available to us right now. This is for a variety of reasons. The main reason why we're being stunted right now is because we're violent. It's a strange kind of paradox. We're violent because we don't have our full potential. We don't have our full potential because we're violent. In many ways, the Earth is not just a library, it's what they call a free will zone. Because it's so far away from everything else, a lot of things are allowed to happen here that wouldn't happen in more organized realms, in realms of more coherent light, like an Arcturus or the Pleiades, where people cooperate, beings cooperate in a way that's coherent with the energy that's happening there. The energies that are happening here are so varied that we're allowed to have a tremendous array of realities happening at once. There are beings here that are fully realized. They're normally not in society. And then you have people that are worse than animals. And there's a lot of us here. So it's kind of all mashed up. And I digress. This is just an introduction. What happened eons ago was this place was a place for DNA to be stored and become something new. Become something that hasn't happened yet. Because if this DNA was just allowed to be raised on the Arcturus and the Pleiades, it would become those organized and coherent forms of reality that are already happening there. This is a place where something new can happen. Something new is happening here every day. But there was a big mistake. A big mistake happened about 18,000 years ago. When things were happening just fine, we were growing, we were evolving, and then we started to become into the influence of these beings, these laggard races, these races of beings that had messed up their reality, they messed up their planet. The brothers of Beale, there was a planet that was very close to Mars, and they exploded it in this big war. There was some sort of big galactic war going on that eventually was worked out, and a lot of the gangster types that didn't want to settle down and be cooperative, well, they were still floating around. And where else do you go? Where do bandits go? They go up into the mountains. Well, where do these guys go? They go to the edge of the galaxy, to a place like Earth, a place that is supposed to be a peaceful nursery for DNA to expand into something new. Well, these guys had another thing in mind. And again, because it's a free will zone, the powers that be, whatever you want to call it, they allow these things to happen because everything works out best case scenario, and these beings know better. So things were moving along, and it was okay that there was corruption and slavery and a lot of pain and suffering, because these things are pressure and friction that will create the DNA to move forward. Things started getting heated up when, about 70 years ago, when the nuclear energy, the nuclear bombs and all that stuff, and they started to mess with the DNA again. It started to look too much like 18,000 years ago, because that's what was happening. The negative aspects in the Atlantean days was too much genetic manipulation and playing around with nuclear energy to the point of causing big explosions that will affect everything else in our surrounding solar system. So when we started to explode nuclear bombs, and we got this technology from these laggard races, from the Greys, from these remnants, they're maybe not even biological, from these beings that have been hanging around, and they have this technology. Now, technology is funny, because technology is not a sign of an advanced people. Technology is a sign of an advancing people. So when there's beings that are relying on technology and mechanisms and machines, they're figuring things out, but they haven't figured things out. The beings that have things figured out are doing it with their mind. They don't need those crutches of technology. So as we're emerging into this technological realm, these guys that knew better, they come in and said, hey, oh, we see you got this big war going on, we'll help you out. We'll give you this bomb that, that'll X these other guys out. Meanwhile, we didn't really realize what we're getting into, in that this nuclear energy will start messing with the DNA, which is done a lot in less than 100 years. You see what's happened, the degradation in just less than 100 years is pretty amazing. Now, I admit we've become more clever, but at what price? The mass extinction of animals, all these problems that we see around us, they're basically from us relying too heavily on this technology that is a little too heavy-handed. We don't really need this kind of technology. These things should be done with our mind. So, we're in a place now where our parents, the star brothers and sisters that brought us here, are coming back. The Arcturians and the Palladians and the Sirians, they're all around our planet now, and they're figuring out a way to retrieve us, the consciousness that's worth retrieving here. There's these dimensions. This dimension that we're living in now, this physical dimension, the third dimension of light, sound, and the five senses that we're all very familiar with, it's expanding into the fourth dimension of dreams, of aspiration, of inspiration. That's the realm that's been contaminated around our planet. That's the realm that these other beings are living in, these not so good guys. They were living in this fourth dimension of dreams and fear. And they literally contaminated this dream space, this fourth dimensional space around planet Earth, to the extent that something had to be done. Something had to be done because we weren't getting anywhere. People, their body would die, our spirit would move out and wouldn't be able to move away from the Earth. It would get stuck in this fourth dimension where these fellows were running things. And they were creating these fearful realities that we drag back here in the form of religion, in the form of limitations of all sorts. All these philosophies of limitations, philosophies of karma, philosophies of, oh, you're just physical. Essentially that, oh, you're just physical. And cutting us off completely from the other strands of the DNA that allow us to manifest things with our minds in such a way that we don't have to rely so heavily on the planet. We can walk, we're meant to walk lightly on this planet and just create things with our minds. And it was fine as long as we were pastoral and farming and things like that. And then when we got at this little bit of technology, you see how this works. It's like, oh, wow, yeah, we're figuring it out. We're smart now. No, we're not. We're just clever. Like clever, drunken monkeys. Just raising hell. Just saying, oh, yeah. Oh, now I'm comfortable. Now I got all this stuff. Right? Stuff. Stuff in the sense of things. Stuff in the sense of ideas that don't belong anywhere. They don't belong anywhere. It's just rhetoric. And you can see our life has gone from this pastoral boredom to suddenly all this excitement around things that simply don't matter. That is the problem. That is what is being rectified right now. And the way it's been done is this fourth dimension of dreams has been emptied out. That's the reason why there's 8 billion people on the planet right now. Every player that's been ever played a game here is here now. We're all here now. There is nowhere to hide. And furthermore, there's nowhere to go. This fourth dimensional realm has been emptied out And everybody that sheds their body now and moves on has nowhere to go. That force is going to create us to jump into the fifth dimension, the dimension beyond the fourth dimension, a dimension of light that is going to the speed of light, that works like we're supposed to work, that works like our mind. Think about that for a minute. Because now we tend to think that we have to do physical things to create a strategy to make things work when we get an idea. No, it's the other way around. You get the idea and then the reality is supposed to pop up around it. That's the way things really operate. We have it backwards. Things are upside down and backwards. And it's like that for a reason. Because we've gotten ourselves, and we're not to blame. If we're going to blame anybody, it's the Palladians. Because the Palladians are the ones that sent these energies here because they didn't want to deal with them either. And this was a long time ago. And this has all come to a head. The idea now is that we are going to suddenly become fifth dimensional. And it's not like we're going to be in a light body and everybody's going to wander around like Casper the Ghost. Not like that at all. It's inside. It's inside. We're going to be inside of our spine more, all of us. And inside with those higher frequencies, we're going to be able, and you can see it happening very quickly. What's happened in my lifetime is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And it's going to become more amazing as we grow, as we move deeper into this photon belt. We are going to be able to use the light of inspiration to create reality all around us. And it's not going to happen slowly. It's happening very quickly. And it's going to be messy. Not everybody's going to catch on. I'm not talking to everybody. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you that understands what I'm saying. Because I know you're out there. All my brothers and sisters that understand this, listen carefully. Because right now is the time for us to wake up. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And we have help. And everything is going to work out best case scenario. There's no doubt about this. All we need to do is get beyond fear, because fear is what the whole problem is. All these fourth dimensional dudes that have been using us, they have to use us. Why? Because they don't have any blood. The blood is the whole thing, you guys. That's where all the power is, and we have got it. It's right here, right now, in our blood. In our blood lies all the power to manifest things in this world right here, right now. When we no longer live in fear of starving, fear of getting hurt, fear of people thinking you're crazy, fear that things aren't going to work out, getting beyond that will allow things to work out. And if you'll notice in the last 10 years how suddenly everything's turned on its head as far as politics goes, as far as religion goes, as far as society goes. Why? Because nobody has a clue what the heck's going on. I'll tell you what's going on. Things are changing in a big way, and in a good way. It's not going to be televised. This revolution will not be televised. There is no way is this going to become mainstream. It is inside the spine. This is happening inside of us. All of these changes are happening inside of us. Who we are as higher frequency is available right now. The reasons why are not nearly as important as doing it. So, do it. Start living fearlessly. Start taking risks. Start stepping forward into your power. And I don't mean power over others. Because if there's anything that needs to be understood, is that the problem is power over others. It should be power over self. That is what rules the universe, is power over self. Power over others is proof that you don't know what's going on. The higher beings in this universe, everywhere in this universe, that's the number one rule, is that you have power over self and not power over others. When you operate from that place, then things fall into place. Then the forces of good, and I don't much like that word, but the forces of coherent energy and power will be behind you, and you won't be forced into taking advantage of your brothers and sisters. You won't be forced into getting involved in a political system and ganging up with other gangsters to make things happen. Things can happen for us here, things can happen for us now, and there's no reason to wait.